Florida's regular legislative session was supposed to end by the end of this weekend, but the biggest task in Tallahassee remains unfinished: passing a state budget. Right now, the House and the Senate remain divided on how much Florida should spend during the next fiscal year. That's July the 1st, 2026 to June 30th, 2027. Lawmakers failing to reach a consensus on how much and where that money should go. The Florida legislature's only constitutional duty each year is to pass a state budget. But at this point, lawmakers are still very far apart. The Florida House has proposed a spending plan of about $113.6 billion. The Senate's version comes in higher, around $115 billion. The gap may seem small in a budget of this size, but inside those numbers are big policy differences. One of the biggest disputes centers on an emergency spending fund supported by Governor Ron DeSantis. The fund was originally set aside to respond to hurricanes and other disasters and emergencies. DeSantis used it to pay for immigration enforcement. Nearly $500 million was spent during the last fiscal year, according to Florida's Department of Emergency Management, costs that included the controversial alligator Alcatraz in the Florida Everglades. Now lawmakers want to clearly define what constitutes an emergency, limiting how that emergency fund is used. Lawmakers are also debating education spending. The Senate plan includes billions of dollars for public schools and raises for state employees. The House version focuses on pay increases and specific priorities for school funding. After 6 weeks in regular session, these unresolved differences mean that lawmakers and staff stay in Tallahassee longer. While they don't receive extra salary for extending session, their expenses on travel, lodging, and meals are reimbursed by taxpayers. Experts say that can amount to approximately $48,000 per day, while lawmakers and key staff remain in the overtime period of session. Mike, I'd like to start with you. The Tampa Bay Times has had a number of reporters covering all different aspects of the legislative session. You've been there as well. What seems to be the major sticking point here? Why is there not more progress?
Well, there's about, maybe a couple $2 billion separating the two, which sounds like a lot, but really on principle, the main sticking point is this, the emergency spending that has really come under a lot of scrutiny, especially with the immigration with alligator Alcatraz. It was created in 2022, really more to deal with nature, natural disasters like hurricanes.
Flooding, correct.
And the governor has spent about $6 billion of that so far, but the $600 million for immigration just raises the question of, does the governor have too much leeway in identifying what to spend money on?
And the governor had said that he was declaring that an emergency, the immigration situation in Florida, an emergency, and that's why he was tapping into those funds.
And that leeway the governor has to determine what to spend money on is extraordinary. So yes, he spent about $600 million on the immigration. And we don't know how that money was spent, but he's also spent a few million on the No Kings protests, which were largely peaceful. And he was able to identify that as an emergency.
Jake, how do you see this? Because so many folks are expecting more to come out of the legislature, and yet the personalities seem so big that may be getting in the way.
Yeah, I think that this whole legislative session is kind of democracy in action. You're watching people with strong personalities, big egos. They don't agree, and it's messy, and it's not always super clean, and they're not going to be on time. But like you said before, it is a constitutional requirement that they will pass a budget. They will get there. It might take a couple extra days, a couple extra weeks, whatever it is. The substance of what they got done during session is a discussion. People do want big reform. They want property tax reform and elimination. They want things done with their utility bills and their insurance especially. And none of those big questions seem to have been answered during that session. So that's really where we're at.
Victor, how do you see all of this? You're smiling as these gentlemen are speaking.
As someone who lobbies up there, I can tell you these guys waste more time doing absolutely nothing. They talk around issues. They'll recognize people from their hometowns. They've had farewell speeches that have lasted for hours. I mean, and the only thing they're charged with is coming up with a budget. They've had 2 months, 60 days to do it.
Well,
and by Friday this weekend, it's supposed to be done, and they're not done. They have to be called back for another special session to finish the budget.
And so let's talk about that, because the special session, the legislators do not get extra pay if they have to go back. However, taxpayers do have to reimburse the expenses of the hotel and the stipend for meals and things like that. If we have already a special session that's designated for the congressional redistricting issue in April, do we think that there's going to be the possibility of a separate special session for the property taxes? Jake, I'll start with you.
Well, we're definitely going to see another special session regarding the congressional redistricting, and you might see another one with the property taxes, but I wouldn't even bother thinking about the fact that they're getting reimbursed stipends for being up there. To be honest, these legislators are paid so little. It's like $39,000 a year.
It's less than that. It's actually $29,000.
It's $29,000,
yeah.
sorry. So you know what? We probably should pay them a living wage and have them focus on their job, so maybe they could actually get the budget passed so they don't have to worry about all the other things they have to go do. You know, these are guys that spend $4 million on a campaign. I don't think that we need to worry too much about $200 reimbursing a poor college student staffer who needs the money to stay in the apartment that day.
Well, the polling I've seen is all about insurance, and they've had multiple special sessions to tackle insurance.
And we'll talk about that in the next segment. Mike, what were you going to say before we run out of time?
On what Jake said. I couldn't agree more. We have a citizens legislature, which means we've deprofessionalized what it is to be a lawmaker. And we have it pretty much defined as a part-time job. So the people that go up there have to have another job. So I think they're a lot more susceptible to lobbying. And I don't quibble with putting them in Tallahassee to discuss things for a longer period of time. They only have 2 months to figure out all the issues facing the state. What's the harm in giving them more time?